Last chance, last call here on WagerTalk TV to get some live information to make some money this weekend. That's what we do here. Appreciate you tuning in here, spending your weekend with us. If you're hanging out already, might as well hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel so when we go live like this, you never miss it. We got MLB today, of course, but first, we're going to talk some NBA playoffs. And to do that, who do I have with me? One of the best to do it. It's Ronald Cabang, RC in the house. Man, it is great to see you. Did a great job yesterday on the NBA tip-off show live on the WagerTalk TV YouTube channel. But let's get into it, man. This Oklahoma City and Dallas series, I feel like we kind of all saw coming what was going to happen with Dallas getting that dub. So now there's finally a little bit of adversity in the playoffs, which the Thunder haven't really seen quite yet. So I'm wondering for you, is it just we take the plus money in this series? It's kind of seemed like that's maybe been the way to go about it. How are you capping this game as far as the side perspective? And we'll get into total, some player props, some listener questions as well. But the series is tied 1-1, brand new series. We got Dallas as the home favorite. How are you looking to bet this one?
Yeah, prior to the playoff, like right when the playoff started, I went through the bracket, figured out who I thought was going to play in the next round. This was the matchup that I had, and I had the Mavs actually beating Oklahoma in the series. I do think that's still the case here, but today I think Dallas actually wins in 7. I think that's how it goes. And in this case today, I think it's a true zigzag here. I think the Thunder take the cake. I do think that it's also going to be a more defensive battle. I think I can kind of see the game going under if you want to look at the total in that sense. The Thunder has been like super dominant as defensive team throughout the playoffs. Game 2 against the Mavs was the first time they actually allowed a playoff opponent to get up and over their team total this postseason. And in round 1, their defense traveled really well on the road. They actually limited the Pelicans to 85 and 89 in New Orleans. I think the Mavs on their side, the 3-point regression is going to be something that we're going to see, in my opinion. They shot 18 out of 37 from 3. That's nearly 50% from behind the arc. And I think PJ, he's the guy that went, 7 for 11 from 3? He's the guy that I think is going to struggle the most here. He scored 29 points in game 2. He's only had a handful of games this season where he scored 25 or more points, and he typically struggled in the games after. So what I looked at this season, after PJ scored 25 or more, this is what happened the following game: 14, 5, 16, 3 points. So he tends to struggle in that aspect. To me, also in game 2, it looked like the Thunder made it really a priority to limit Kyrie's scoring. He ended up being a distributor. I think he had like 10 or 11 assists in that game. The role players hit the shots. PJ hit the shots. Hardaway, Green, they all hit the shots. This time around, I think the Thunder make the defensive adjustments to get it done, to limit these role players from getting those shots. Even in the loss, offensively, the Thunder were actually still efficient on the offensive side of the ball, and I think that continues for them here. So the way that I took it was actually Thunder plus the points. And also, like I said, I think there's going to be some regression on the Mavs offense. The other way that I would look at it would be the Mavs team total under.
Oh, so some potential different ways to get at that. I also like that you bring up the defensive prowess, because we got Jimmy Willie in the chat, and shout out, welcome on in the guys in the chat: Titan CT, Derek 49, William Bennett. We appreciate you. We're going to talk that Celtic and Cavs game coming up here momentarily, but the total in this one, we saw it open 219. We're seeing it tick down to 18s, 218 and a half. We're down to even 217 and a half in some spots. So for you, it sounds like this is an under game for you. As I hear you breaking it down, sure, you're looking at the Mavs team total, but as far as the entire game total, sounds like maybe defense is going to be the star here as they're heading on back to Denver, and maybe the zigzag of this series continues, right?
Yeah, I do think that it's an under type of game. The Mavs, they've been an under their pace has been towards the under since the trade deadline. Bringing in Gafford and PJ and all that stuff. So they're more defensive minded. They're a slower paced team. Obviously, Oklahoma likes to push the pace. But one thing, with this total where it's at, I think the fact that we see, or I'm hoping the Mavs struggle offensively, that's going to be what helps us stay under the total. There could be an instance where, maybe the Thunder run away with it. They can get over their team total. But I think the Mavs struggle just enough to get them to keep this one under. One thing that I noticed too, as far as like the rebounding battle, the offensive rebounding, that's something that the Mavs took care of in game 2. I think that's another adjustment Oklahoma has to take care of. And if they're able to limit the offensive rebounding for Dallas, that's also gonna help them. With obviously limiting second chance points. Another thing to mention on the Thunder side, I think Chet. I think in the playoffs, maybe in the last 5 or 6 games, he shot at least 6 3-pointers. And I think in 4 of them, he's only made 1. So he's getting the volume. If we're looking at it from a prop perspective, I think Chet is a guy that you can get 2+ threes in this instance. Yep. For close to even money. And he's going to get the opportunities. There's multiple times where he's had, 2 threes during the playoffs. But I think in the last 4 or 5, he's only had 1. So that's another way to look at it from a prop perspective. I also think that he's going to show up offensively in this game.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring up here some player props because we'll get into that. We do have Celtics and Cavs coming up here shortly. We'll break down that game in full detail with my man Ronald Cabang. But as far as player props go, first a question from in the chat here. We got William Bennett asking, between the two teams, who do you think has the better bench? And as far as these two teams go, I feel like the answer is it depends on the night, Ronald, because in game 1, it was like Isaiah Joe seemed like he could have played for any team and make a huge difference. You got Gordon Hayward on that side as well, but then other nights you get meaningful minutes from guys coming off the bench here. So, I feel like it's a case-by-case basis. I'm not sure if I could blanket both of these teams because I would argue there are two teams that have better benches than most as it comes to the playoffs here.
I think with their current rotation, I would say the deeper bench would be Oklahoma, right?
Fair.
But if you look at the last game where Lively, Hardaway, and Green, they all played pretty good minutes. I mean, Lively, he only scored 2 points, but he was plus 18 on the plus minus, right? He does the little things that you want for your role players to come in and just rebound the ball, play solid defense. You know what I mean? So, and then you had Tim Hardaway and Green who they shot well from 3. There was a couple instances where Josh Green had, there was one instance where Josh Green had a important offensive rebound, kicked it out, and then I forgot who it was, but they hit a 3. So there's like the little things that they do, but there's only those 3 guys that's been getting pretty good run. Exum, obviously, I think he's another guy that they could put into the rotation, but I don't think it's a good matchup for him. And when you look at the Oklahoma bench, I think they're a little bit deeper. They can actually go 5 deep if they wanted to. And I think that their bench is going to be a little bit more important because off of game 2, what I saw with Giddey is this is not a good matchup for Giddey either. I know he's probably going to start again, but I think his minutes are probably going to be a little bit limited. They need someone like Wallace or Wiggins and Isaiah Joe, who can shoot the 3 ball and stretch the court offensively. So we might see that a little bit more here in game 3. We'll see how they adjust the rotation, but when we're looking at the bench specifically, I would say Oklahoma has a better bench.
So Titan CT, as far as player props go, Kyrie points over is what he's going for. Man, Kyrie for a while there, like the dude completely turned back the clocks, and you were like, holy shit, is that actually Kyrie Irving doing what he's doing right now? But kind of came back down to earth when the Mavericks actually won a game in this series. Only 9 points in the last outing there. I'm looking at the total sitting at anywhere around like 22.5 juice to the over for Kyrie is what I'm seeing. So he better have one hell of a bounce back game if he's getting up and over 22.5. I think I have a different prop maybe that I would eye for him that's been hitting with regularity, kind of underneath the radar. But for you, how do you see Irving working out here tonight? Because it certainly didn't work out in game 2.
Yeah, I think in game 2, I think, I mentioned a little bit earlier, OKC tried to limit him offensively, right? And he became a distributor and the role players hit their shots. I'm wondering, obviously I'm not too big of a prop guy, but I'm wondering if OKC goes back to what they did in game 1 and just allows Kyrie to kind of go off and see if and basically let one guy win the game and not everybody else, because that looked like it worked. So if they're gonna try and adjust, I would say adjust back to what they did in game 1. I think Luka is a little bit hobbled. I mean, obviously he's a volume guy, but you could see there's times when he's not walking or running, effectively. It just doesn't look like he just doesn't look right. So I think this might be a case where they give the reins back to Kyrie, allow him to do his thing and stop everybody else, because it's 1 versus 5. It's not going to happen. OKC should be able to win if they get back to that type of strategy.
Yeah, and if you do think Kyrie is going to go over and you don't want to have to sweat around those 22.5 points, it figures that maybe he unleashes it from behind the arc a little bit better. It's a little juicier. So as far as props go, 3 points made, it's sitting at 2.5. If you think he's going over 22.5, it figures that things figure themselves out from 3-point land. But again, it's minus 155. That prop's hitting 7 of the last 10 games that Kyrie Irving's been on the court. But the one for me, RC, is the sneakiest one of all. Everybody wants to bet points and PRA and everything. I love going to the defensive tab and looking at some defensive stats. The ATM has been Kyrie Irving steals. I mean, the dude is back playing defense. 9 out of the last 10 games he's been on the court, steals has gone over for Kyrie Irving. It's sitting at 1.5. He'll probably only get 2, so you are going to sweat this one, but at minus 105, that would be the Kyrie Irving prop that I would be eyeing, is going over on his steals. You can find some sneaky, nice prices like that one when you're going away from maybe some of these more traditional prop markets. So that's the way I would bet Kyrie Titans CT. Hop below in the comments. Let us know what player props you're eyeing this evening. Before we turn things on over to the Celtics and the Cavs in this one, Ronald, Luka. I mean, we got to talk Luka, because after hitting 5 threes in 4 games, he hits 5 threes in 1 game. So it looked more like the Luka Doncic that we've come to expect. What we didn't expect is whatever the hell was going on in his press conference after the game. I mean, good God, Ronald. that was someone was having a good night there. It wasn't just the Mavericks that were scoring at will on last game. But as far as Luka goes, I mean, he looked more like himself. I think maybe he's still a little bit hobbled, but it seems like he's put that out of his mind. The doctors have him right. Moving forward in this series, should we expect Luka to be Luka, or are you still worried about maybe that injury looming large?
I still think that the longer the series goes, if he continues to play 40-plus minutes, he's not going to be 100% every single game. I think one situation is, like maybe looking at I know some books offer these lines where they can get, player props in the first quarter or whatever it might be, but maybe look towards him early in the game and see if you can get those types of first quarter props or whatever it might be. Because I know one thing with Kyrie is he likes to allow his teammates to get going early, and then he tries to, if needed, then he kind of goes off towards the end of the game, like the fourth quarter, or that's how I see it as far as like game flow goes. To me, I think Luka himself, I just don't think he's 100% right now. He just doesn't look like it. Whether or not he's performing in that way, putting up the numbers, is a different story, because he's just pushing through. But the longer the series goes, I think we see him maybe struggle a little bit more, and he's going to have to rely. Dallas is going to have to rely on Kyrie a little bit more often.
And that would mean, hey, Titan CT, if they do rely on Kyrie, maybe you keep on back, and that point's a total over. Keep the comments coming. Any questions that you have on either of the games, we'll roll through them here with my man Ronald Cabang. But for him, it's getting the +3, which the price is anywhere as high as getting 3 points to only getting 2 points in this one. So the market is all kinds. This is a shop around game. If you like the Celtics, go find those 2s. If you like the Thunder, make sure you grab that 3. Let's talk Boston and Cleveland here, RC. I mean, Boston's starters should at least be well rested, right? They got that extra 5 minutes of rest in that in that game against the Cavs. But man, I will say, I was on the Cavs that game because I listened here. I helped produce behind the scenes to the NBA tip-off show, and it was like, what do we have to lose back in the Cavs here? Hopefully you sprinkled that money line like I did, but same side of that coin, I didn't expect it to go the way that this went. I mean, that was an ass-beating, RC, and it was tied at halftime. So did Cleveland show the fight that they need to potentially hang around against Boston, or was that their one haymaker and then it's Boston in 5 from this point out? What do you think?
No, I think from a matchup perspective, especially without KP, I think this is a solid matchup for the Cavs. I was talking to one of my buddies about this series, and he's a big Celtics fan, and I was just like, hey, and this was before Game 7 of the Magic and the Cavs. I was like, you better hope Magic win, because Cavs have a good matchup against the Celtics team. Cavs end up winning. They still won here. I think this is a really good matchup for them defensively, especially with, like I said, especially with KP out. But in this game specifically, I think the the Celtics do bounce back here. But I think it's in a way that most people are not going to expect. I think people are going to be like, oh, they're going to bounce back offensively. But I think it's the defense that makes it happen. I do think that they're going to score more than 94, but I think they're going to limit the Cavs to even less. I think the Celtics defense steps up here. The Cavs were really efficient from the field in Game 2. They shot 55% from the field. That includes 13 out of 28 from 3. That's 46% behind the arc there. This is a very similar situation to what the Celtics saw in round 1. In Game 2 against the Heat shot lights out and obviously they got the win in Game 2. Same thing with the Cavs. They won in Game 2, shooting lights out. What happened in Game 3? The Celtics locked them down and limited the Heat to just 84 points. And with that said, I think you can kind of tackle this in 2 ways. I still think that the Celtics can cover the spread, but I also like the Cavs team total under as well. From a trend perspective, this is to me a true zigzag. And when I look at the trend perspective, since 2020, the 2020 playoffs, road favorites off of a loss as a favorite. Road favorites off a loss as a favorite. 17-3 straight up and against the spread since the 2020 playoffs. That's an 85% hit rate, and that backs the Celtics here in this spot. I just think that the Celtics are too good a team to not make the necessary defensive adjustments to stop the Cavs offense. Offensively, I think they will shoot better than they did in Game 2. Particularly, I think Derek White. I think he's the guy that we're going to need to see step up here. Shot 3 for 11 from the field, only 1 of 8 from 3. I think a lot of people were on his threes props in Game 2. And I believe it was like 2.5 or 3. I believe it was 2.5 3-pointers. Everybody was on their over, and I think they're going to shy away from it after Game 2. But I think this might be the spot where they go back to it here. So in this instance, in this game, I would look towards the Celtics -8 or the Cavs team total under. I think it's at 101.5 right now.
All right, so a couple different ways to play this one for our man Ronald Cabang, but it sounds like, to me, it's funny because yesterday on the NBA tip-off show, we were talking all about how, the zigzag is dead. The zigzag is over-exaggerated, and when you pull the numbers, it doesn't quite seem like that's working. But as far as these 2 series go, it sounds like you think it has been or could potentially be here in Game 3, bouncing forward and bouncing back here. How about the total in this one? Because like you kind of said, I feel like Cleveland maybe gave their best puncher's chance. So that's why maybe Cleveland's team total under makes a lot of sense to me. Our man Willie in the chat, he was saying, I'm on both the overs, so I'm cooked in this one. 211 is what we're seeing here. Looks like that's pretty much painted. There's maybe a 211.5. It's one of the sharp spots, but as far as the total goes, game total in this one, I mean, I feel like we just keep playing the under. Is that how you see it?
Yeah. I think that too. Real quick before we move to the total, I do want to talk about that zigzag theory. I know there's certain instances where the zigzag has not been profitable, but if you dive deeper into them, and that, I mean, I think hopefully when people watch these shows, they kind of hear how I break things down. It's not necessarily just a straight zigzag or whatever. There's always some other instance that you want to dive deeper into to kind of see maybe the zigzag, but the team's now a dog, or whatever it might be. But in this instance, like I mentioned, road favorites off a loss as a favorite. These are instances where it's sort of a bounce back situation, right? Not necessarily win loss, but this team is typically the better team, and obviously after they lose, the line adjusts a little bit, and that helps, especially in the playoffs here. So, I mean, that's kind of like what I wanted to say about the zigzag is there's certain instances where it still is very profitable, and this is one of those cases. And then going to the total here, I do think that this is an under type game, but I can see it two ways. I think that the Celtics can get up and over their team total. I do think that they're going to bounce back offensively, but I also think that more likely to happen is that the Cavs go back to how they were prior to that game, which was not really strong on the offensive side of the ball, and the Celtics also, play solid defense to limit them there. So I think from a full game perspective, I would rather focus on the Cavs team total versus the full game, because it could happen either way. If the Cavs win another one, I don't think it's going to be with their offense. I think the Cavs will need to limit the Celtics defensively, and that means that they can have games where they win and stay under their team total. That's how I think of it. I don't think this is a team that's going to consistently outscore the Celtics. So, and then on the Celtics side, this is an instance where they can get up and over, they can get hot and push the full game over, while the Cavs still stay under their team total. So, multiple reasons why I think from a total perspective, especially in the playoffs, maybe focus on a single team and what you think that they're going to do. And in this case, Cavs team total under would probably be the way that I would go.
Yeah, and as far as we'll talk a couple different player props here, and then we got MLB coming up with my man Steve Merril, and if you have any questions for him on the NBA side of things, he's one of the best as well, so keep them coming here in the chat. We appreciate it. While you're hanging out with us, make sure you hit that like button and you're subscribed here. But something that you've had success with, something you even had yesterday on NBA Tip-Off, is trying to isolate some of these quarters, trying to isolate some of these halves. Like, I just feel like the Celtics coming in might want to try and flex the muscle a little bit here right out of the gate. So, yes, I like Boston Celtics laying the 8 for the game. I think that they're going to try and come back here and make a statement. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't. But I almost want to play at minus 115, taking the Celtics in the first quarter, laying the 2.5 here in the first quarter. Roger Long loves the Celtics. Maybe it's a bad thing that we're all seeing the same way, RC, but sometimes I think it's a damn good thing. What do you think about the Celtics starting off right away, slapping the Cavs in the face and saying, yeah, that was a one-off? Because playing them in the first quarter makes a heck of a lot of sense to me for that reason.
Yeah, for this game specifically, I think I would look, if I was isolating, first quarter, first half or whatever, I think it would be the Celtics first half. They've been such a dominant team in the first half throughout the season, and especially in this situation where they're a road favorite. They've been super dominant in that situation as far as first half. I think so. If I'm looking at on the road specifically, 31-11-1 in the first half. ATS, and just that alone I think is is probably enough to say sometimes you could just kind of blindly take these situations, because if you've done that all throughout the season, you've already profited so much. Why stop now, right? It's like what Ski says: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I know they didn't cover in the last game, but this is an instance where this is one of those trends that don't typically lose back to back, right? 31-11, that's 74%. So if I was to isolate anything and play anything, it would be that Celtics first half.
Yeah, and we got some folks in the chat agreeing with you, whether they spell my my nickname right or not. We appreciate everyone chiming in there. I know, Ronald, that it's not something that you dabble in as much. You like doing the team totals, you like doing first halves, first quarters. But as far as player props go, one that has been an absolute ATM that I don't think enough people are talking about is one of my arch nemesis. As a Philly guy, Al Horford has been a thorn in my side for a long time, because it was like when he was on the Celtics, he was amazing. He went to the Sixers, he sucked. He went back to the Celtics, and he's been amazing. But 10 straight times you've cashed if you've gone under Al Horford's points, rebounds, assists, and they keep putting up the same number. He's going to be around 16 according to numbers that I'm looking at, and they're hanging a 19.5 with the under only minus 105. So for me, it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've cashed in on it. I haven't been on all 10 of those games, but it's been an ATM for me until he goes over, and then I'll give him his roses. Me as the Philly hater, it's been fun taking his under prop, and that for me is one that stands out. Anything for you?
Yeah, I think going back to what I mentioned earlier with Derek White, I think people are going to shy away from him just because of how he performed in Game 2. I think this might be the spot you go back to him, get the threes or his PRA. I think his points is at like 17 or so. So maybe if you want to just isolate his points, you can do that as well. I think there was another player that I was thinking about as far as from the Cavs side. I think it was Max Strus. I believe it was Game 2. Let me just double check. But I think he had a pretty decent Game 2. I got to get my notes ready. But I think he's one guy that might struggle here. I think when there's an instance where he gets going with the 3-ball, right? I think they're going to try and limit that. So he only scored 12 in the last game, but he has that volume from the 3. They give him the green light. I think as long as he continues there to struggle, that might be a big factor, because Garland is another guy. He went 4 for 5 from 3. He's kind of been inconsistent offensively. Really, it's been Donovan Mitchell who's been that guy that's been consistent offensively for them. Even Karis LeVert, he's always off and on as well. I think guys, the role players here, Strus, LeVert, I think those guys take a dip here offensively. I don't know what their points prop is at, but I think they take a dip. I think they're going to rely on same thing with Donovan Mitchell. I feel like they're going to key in on him really and just allow him to play his game and see if the other teams other players can step up. Evan Mobley scored 21 in Game 2. He's that guy. I think I mentioned it in the last show I was on WagerTalk. He's that guy that they need to get going early. If he doesn't get going early, this team is going to struggle from the 3-ball. Because if Jared Allen is not there, there's no other person that is going to be able to really make a difference in the paint. And if there's nobody there to score in the paint, they're just going to go ahead and defend the perimeter pretty easily. And that's most of the other guys here: Strus, Mitchell, Okoro, Garland. Those are all guys who like to shoot outside or in the mid range. So Mobley is that guy. If you see him struggling early, the Cavs are going to be in trouble.
Yeah, and talking on Max Strus specifically, point prop is right around 10.5, so that number sounds about right for me. I wouldn't be betting under on that. I think if you maybe want to find a way to attack him, you have to go into the player combos and either add that player or points and assists, points or rebounds, just so you can get a little bit more advantageous of a number than being right around what his average is going to be. So even if you think he does regress, I probably wouldn't go straight to that points prop and go under, as it's sitting at 10.5. That's Ronald Cabang. We appreciate you, man, waking up here early on the West Coast to get the folks some winners. I mean, we gave away basically the damn entire card here for you. But what do you have locked and loaded over at WagerTalk.com? Because we got that great special. People can ride with you for 11 days for just the price of 7. So when folks partner up with you, what are they going to find over there at WT.buzz/RC?
Yeah, right now I actually only have NBA. I typically have MLB. I've actually been doing really well in MLB as well. I think 18-8 run in the MLB. In the NBA, I'm hitting like 65% in the last 40 plays or around there. So both MLB and NBA really treating me well. If you listen during the show, you know what I'm on today. For the most part, I have 3 plays in the NBA right now. I'll mention during the show. Just listen to the show and you'll figure it out. But yeah, I think moving forward, one of the things I'm really excited about is the WNBA. I was number 1 last season in the WNBA, and I want to continue to do that. I know it's not a very popular sport to bet on, but with Caitlin Clark, popping up and the hype around her, I think there's going to be a lot more people very interested in betting WNBA. So if you're looking to get into that, I was number 1 last season, and hopefully we continue to do that here this season.
Yeah, and whether you're interested in watching the games or not, partner up with the dude. The dude wins in WNBA, and that's what it is all about. I mean, I'll give people lacrosse plays, and they'll be happy when it cashes. I guarantee you nobody's tuning into ESPNU to sweat alongside a lacrosse bet with me, RC. Yeah. But when it cashes, it's all green, baby. It's all green, baby. Exactly. So
I think there's going to be a big number of people jumping into WNBA betting, and I just want to make sure people
1,000%.
understand. I've been betting WNBA since 2018, so I know the sport, I know the players, I follow them. I know it's not, obviously NBA and WNBA, the way that they play is a little bit different. You got to understand the nuances between the two to be able to successfully transition from NBA to WNBA. It's not the same thing. You gotta understand that part. Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000%, and that while there's going to be a bunch of people now hopping in with the added interest in the WNBA, they're going to be telling you I'm an expert. I'm an expert. This guy been winning in it. My man RC has been winning in the WNBA. Yeah. So don't fall for it. Ride with the guy who has the proven track record. RC, have a terrific rest of the day. Best of luck to you. The last call is done for my man RC. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, brother. That is my man Ronald Cabang. Make sure you check him out. While you're hanging out with us, make sure you get that like button. Make sure you're subscribed and throw some roses and some hype in the chat for 2 R's. 1 L. He's been waiting in the wings, chomping at the bit to talk some baseball with you. We'll talk some NBA as well. Stevie, it's nice seeing you here on a weekend. Typically, we just get some weekday action, but now we got some WagerTalk last call, some Saturday winners. And man, since we have the full slate to get into, I'm going to start with the Phillies right out of the gate. It's dealer's choice today. So we had that game nailed. I think we hit every which way you could bet the Phillies last night. You want the starter to record a win. You want the money line. You want the first 5. You want player props over. Whatever you want, we gave it to you on the Phillies. Talk about wagons, Steve. I mean, is this just set it and forget it with the Philadelphia Phillies? Is this even trending into even as a road team, laying a run and a half? What do you think as far as this Philadelphia wagon has been concerned?
Yeah, I think all of our gut feelings were that it looked too obvious, and you and I, we all kind of stayed away from it for that reason. But it checked all the boxes last night. But the one reason I really liked the Phillies was something I mentioned on the baseball show, is that game 1. Road favorites do well, and Friday night road favorites do extremely well, and it's an angle that's worked. And Ralph Michaels pointed it out here a couple days ago to all of us with one of his great charts. So not a surprise in hindsight. And the difference too, I think we got to remember with baseball, and I bring this up a lot with you on the baseball show, is that unlike the point spread sports, basketball and football, it can seem too obvious. It doesn't matter. The team just has to win.
Yep.
If that had been a football game, the point spread might have been very well inflated, and the Phillies might have won but not covered. It's just not the case with baseball. So it was like a minus $1.70. It could have been minus 500. It didn't matter. They won the game. Now it's a much cheaper price. I do think the Marlins are going to get the Phillies either today or tomorrow. And if,
Agreed.
it's probably most likely Sunday, just because we've talked about how random those Sunday afternoon getaway games can be. And the Phillies also, by the way, do have a big series against the Mets on deck starting Monday night in New York. So I could definitely see them maybe overlooking the Sunday game. So it's something to keep an eye on if they win tonight, or if they get this game 2 here. But, as far as the pitching matchup this afternoon, 4:00 Eastern, Luzardo is a decent starter, and I think Walker is suspect, and that's why we see such a short price here. But once again, I'm in no hurry to take the Miami Marlins, a 10-30 Marlins team, just getting plus 110. I just need more value than that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And hey, talk about value. Talk about set it and forget it. Ruzen in the chat pointing out that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Phillies first 5 on a 13-1 run. If you're playing the Phillies on the run line in the first 5, that's one of the favorite plays for our man Ruzen. He drops it in the chat every time. He's like, I'm betting Phillies first 5. I'm betting Phillies first 5. Yesterday, I do believe, though, Steve, he was the one guy who was like, let's play the Marlins today. I think we got the Marlins and Ruzen, a man after our own heart here, Steve. I'd bet water polo if it made money for me. Don't joke, because if you say that, probably Andy Lang is going to start offering water polo plays. So
the Olympics are this summer. The Olympics are this summer. You will be able to bet water polo in the next couple of months. That is a fact in France.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a very good point.
Excellent
Olympic
point.
betting, it's no joke. It's no joke. All right, Steve, until we trend into the territory where we're going to be breaking down water polo and fencing, which if anyone we'll have someone at WagerTalk who does it. We're talking about the best team in baseball, the Philadelphia Phillies, but the real best team in baseball is the Chicago White Sox. I'm kidding, but another outright win here for the Sox, and this was a team that you told people, hey, take the plus money with them yesterday. There were some folks in the chat that were like, what are we doing, betting the White Sox? Steve knows what he's doing. Do we just keep going back to the well? Like, are the White Sox really turning a corner, or is this just the MLB season showing its colors?
Well, Crucetta, it was a pitcher yesterday for the White Sox, and that was a large reason I liked them. They were the free play on the site.
Yeah.
Be sure to check out my free plays each and every day. Loading one right now for tonight's baseball. The free plays have done quite well. We had the Royals Thursday, had the White Sox last night on Friday as a free winner for everybody. I like the pitching matchup better yesterday, but Chicago is a play-on team right now. And something I pointed out in the analysis on the show yesterday when I gave it out as well is that this White Sox squad started 3-22 this season. 3-22. When they were, halfway through that losing slump, you could say, well, they're due. They're going to win 50 games still. But you kept losing. You got to wait for the tide to turn. We don't try to catch those falling knives, as I talk about all the time. Yep. They've gone 8-6 since. So, yes, they're in an upswing right now. The worst team in baseball is going to win 40-plus games. And to be honest, the worst team is going to win 50-plus almost every season. Even the A's last year, as bad as they were with all the distractions, still won 50 games. So Chicago's got a lot of games to win still. They're just 11-28, and they're in decent current form. And one thing I always look at is offensive current form. And I don't say they're in great offensive form, but they have scored 13 runs their last 3 games, 4, 3, and 6. They've had 8 hits or more now in 3 straight, and they've had 8 hits or more in 5 of their last 7, which is an above-average performance, especially for Chicago. So, I think we can continue to ride them. 3 straight wins for them. The Guardians, have lost 3 of their last 4. I do think the Guardians either get today's game or tomorrow. So, once again, if the White Sox get another win here, random getaway days, Sundays, maybe where Cleveland can step in.
Yeah, you're not going to find me in this one betting on Clevenger, who what it is as a robust ERA over 13. So you're not gonna find me trying to make a case for a man who's coming off the 8-2 road loss. I know that it might be a little bit juicy. I don't have the price in front of me, but I would maybe even lay the half a run here with Cleveland in the first 5. I just think that pitching matchup is so stark that maybe if the White Sox can find some magic, it probably happens once these starting pitchers make their exit and the bullpen comes on in. But it's find a way to play Cleveland or pass for me in that one. I know the White Sox have been a nice little moneymaker here in a short little window. But like Steve said, I mean, we got a whole card. We don't have to we don't have to pigeonhole ourselves in to betting a game like that. So, Steve, let's keep with these road favorites, though. Atlanta and the Mets. And yes, William Bennett, it is always good when we see 2 R's, 1 L, especially as he has just been winning with regularity. But this one's intriguing because you got Max Fried on the mound. And yeah, shout out to our man, William. But with Fried on the mound, Mets against lefty. You got Scott opposing them in that one. It's a big price for the Braves, and money keeps coming in on them. I think the price is justified. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, not a lot to work with Christian Scott. In fact, I'm going to pull up, usually have this stuff in front of me, but I like to, with these young guys, to pull up their minor league stats, as I've talked about a lot of times, because on average, you can bump it about 40% to see what they're going to do in the pros. This is a guy that's had 45 appearances, 33 starts in the minors, a 3.3 ERA, 1.03 WHIP, which is very solid, 221 strikeouts in 174 innings. And, of course, he's only made 1 appearance in the big leagues. That was the other week, and a pretty good start, 1.3 ERA and 0.9 WHIP. So I like what I've seen so far from Christian Scott, and his minor league numbers back it up. So could be a live play here against that hot offense of the Braves, which hasn't been all that hot recently. They've come back down to earth here over the last couple of weeks. Fried obviously is a great pitcher as well, so it might be a good little underplay here. I think the sharp money agreed with it that it opened 8. It's now down to 7. Whew, big move there, Dan. 8 under to 7 over. But yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I like both starting pitchers in this matchup.
Yeah, it makes a heck of a lot of sense to me as well. And Steve, yesterday, something that we talked about was why the hell did we have to lay money with the Pittsburgh Pirates yesterday with the form that they've been in? They have to be excited because they're finally going to get a guy that they believe could be a true ace in Paul Skenes hopping on the mound for them. So it's a game that probably has some buzz around it, which hasn't been able to be said for Pittsburgh as of late. But, you know, with any pitching debuts, for me, I feel like there's way more potential value, I'll put in air quotes, fading a guy in his debut than saying, finally, the savior is here, because that young man has a hell of a lot of pressure on his shoulders. I just feel like this could be a series after the Cubs finally flex their muscle a little bit. I think you might be looking at a sweep series here for the Cubs is what I'm trying to say. Do you believe in this pitcher that they're bringing up here, or are you kind of with me that the Cubs could potentially return to a little bit of semblance, go on a little bit of run here, and it starts against the Pittsburgh Pirates?
Well, this guy's an ace, at least probably will be. First of all, I want to point out that we're seeing a 6.5 now at one of the sharp offshores. It's 7 under 25. So we are seeing some 6.5s. And someone did comment yesterday after the show that we saw 6.5 earlier this week on one of the closing lines. I'd have to go back and check that. But I asked a lot of viewers yesterday, have we seen a 6.5 this year? I didn't recall seeing one. But this game very well might close. It's already starting to show off short. It's 7 under 25. And as you mentioned, Paul Skenes makes his major league debut. And just to put this in perspective, he's a 21-year-old, 6'6". He was the number 1 draft pick last year, number 1 first-round pick by the Pirates out of LSU. He is considered an ace. He was in college, and he made 7 starts in the minors this year. Looked pretty damn good. 45 strikeouts in 27 innings, 0.99 ERA, 0.91 WHIP. So those are fantastic numbers. We haven't seen him pitch in the MLB, but I think he's getting a good situation here. And I think Pittsburgh's been very selective where they started him in an afternoon Saturday home game against a suspect Cubs offense. Looks like a good situation. The Cubs have really been Jekyll and Hyde. 10 hits, 1 hit, 14 hits in their last 3 games. So we'll see which version comes today. But I do like the Pirates here. I like playing maiden starters. It's an angle I've used for over 25 years. Back in the 90s when I started handicapping baseball, I discovered it. And guys that are new starters in the big leagues historically do perform well. And one of the main reasons is that the opposing hitters are just not familiar with them. And I think that'll be the case here. So, yes, there's some pressure, but I think it's a good situation for Pittsburgh today.
Yeah, and honestly, if you do dive into the numbers, if you do think that he's going to have a hell of a great debut here, This is a case where maybe I suggest you go in blind on some pitcher props. Like again, I didn't see him play in AAA and AA baseball, so I can't speak to what I think I'm going to see from this guy. I can read the tea leaves. I can read what people say about him, and they think he's a hell of a player. But you don't know what the numbers should be until you have some data on them. So, hey, if you want to go in blind, you're going to have advantageous numbers on Paul, just based on the fact that there's no data on it. So if you feel like you do have an edge, I would maybe eye some player props. For me, I got nothing in it. We got Ray D'Amico saying thanks for the winners. It's what we do here, Ray. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button. He also thinks maybe 5 innings for them. And shout out, great comment from man Javier. These guys at WagerTalk do their due diligence, hard facts, vital for betting. Thank you for your insights. Thank you for tuning in and writing out that terrific comment. We work around the clock to hopefully get you guys some winner and some info, and that's why we love having the WagerTalk family here. Make sure you hit that bell so you make sure you're a part of it. Steve, yesterday we talked the Boston Red Sox being the worst team in a matchup against the Washington Nationals. Your Washington Nationals. And Tokyo Brandon pissed off just about everybody in Boston by starting his breakdown with, Boston fans suck. It's like, come on, TB, just get to the damn game here. As far as the game went, though, he nailed it. I mean, it was Washington in a landslide. The Red Sox just can't figure it out at the plate, man. Do you think they finally do today? What's your thoughts in this one? Seemingly a high total for an offense that can't figure it out, and you're looking at an 8.5 in this game. Might be worth looking towards the under unless you think the offenses explode today. What say you with Criswell and Irvin opposing each other on the bump?
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday. I mean, the Nationals remain an undervalued team. If you look at the offensive numbers, if you look at the bullpen numbers, they're pretty much equal with Boston this year. And then, you know, the pitching edge, obviously, the Red Sox had it, but it wasn't a 2-1 edge yesterday with the starting pitcher. And that's one of the reasons the Nationals are off to a surprising 19-18 start. But look at the money line. They're up 12.5 units of profit on 37 games. So obviously the market has not priced them. And contrast that with the Red Sox, who are 19-19, a half game worse, and they're even money on the money line. So half a game better, and the Nats are up 12 more units this year. So we've been getting value, and I don't think anything has changed. Whether they win or today, you know, I'm neutral on that, but the value is definitely with the Nats. I'm not laying $1.50, $1.60 here with Boston because that line, once again, is just too high.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think you're seeing this game exactly the way that I am. When the price is too high, it's stay away, or it's try and make a case for the dog in that one. Steve, I just want to make sure, I've been throwing the games to you. When you look down this slate, did any game jump off the board at you? Because I think it's a decent board here today, but I don't love it like I loved Friday's card. Like, I could have made a play in every single game last night. I think this is a little bit tougher of a board. Did anything hop off at you and say, this is a game I definitely want to isolate?
Yeah, I agree with you with the weekends. We talked about this a bit on the show yesterday. I talked about how Friday night road favorites, game one road favorites have been a very strong play, and it makes a lot of sense because in the new series, the better team, especially on the road, stays focused and they don't miss the opportunity to beat up on a weaker team. I think the weekend games get trickier Saturday and especially tomorrow and Sunday with all the daytime getaway starts. So I do kind of back off a little. I've got one strong best bet tonight for my clients. It is one of the nighttime games at WagerTalk in baseball, and I have both NBA games, strong best bets in both NBA games this afternoon tonight. So I do have a 3-for-1 special, but I'll give you the free play, which was just a bit outside for making the cut, and that's on my page right now at WagerTalk.com, and that's the over in the Rangers-Rockies game. And once again, rare situation. We're getting a total on Coors Field that's below 10. I haven't stepped in with the recent games over the past week. We saw it happen on all three games with San Francisco and Colorado. And, of course, 2 of those 3 went over the total. But we're seeing it here again with the Texas game tonight. Yesterday's game at a 9.5, it landed 4-2. I stayed off that total. But I do like the over here now. And Colorado's actually hitting the ball. They've got 36 hits in their last 3 games, and they've put up 19 runs. So the Rockies are scoring. Texas is more than capable of scoring. They've gone over 3 of their last 4. They only had 2 runs yesterday as they got used to the altitude. But keep in mind, they played a 23-run game with 12 runs in Oakland just 2 days before. I like the over 9.5. I think this is another spot where the odds makers have lowered this total too much. Just to put it in perspective, we get a lot of 13 sometimes in Coors Field. The average is like 11 to 12, and now we're getting a 9.5. I like the over here between Texas and Colorado is my free play of the night at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, for me, the play that jumped off the board for me and Scotty P, of course, we want to bet the Phillies. This is the most pro Phillies show on the internet, and it's my fault. When Joe is hosting Wager Talk Last Call, it's not as pro Phillies. It's pro whatever Joe's the hell we can make money on.
How
you're right. You're right.
I just realized that.
No wonder why Joe didn't host. Bursting. Yeah, he was like, forget this. You guys nailed the Phillies last night. I'm heading on down to Tampa Bay and partying with Kelly. You guys can deal with this Marlins bullshit. But for me, Steve, the play that really stood out to me, I love jumping into these player props. Specifically, I like looking at total bases. I turned the page to this Oakland and Seattle game. We love the late night specials. We love the get back specials, however you want to call it. For me in this one, this is a guy who you're getting really good prices on because he's an unknown commodity, and that's Dylan Moore of the Seattle Mariners. With that big win that they had, he was a huge part of it. 8-1 victory for the Mariners last night. Moore goes 3 for 4, had a home run, 5 RBIs in that opener, and the only reason that he's playing is because J.P. Crawford was injured, so he's filling in at shortstop, and then he gets to the plate, and for whatever reason, the guy just saw it beautifully last night, and there hasn't been an adjustment. I'm looking at Dylan Moore total bases over a half. This thing should at least be 1.5 because he's going to be in the lineup. He's going to see pitches. It's only minus 125. And the play for his hits is the exact same number, over a half hit at 125. Why would I play hits at the same price when I could take total bases? And if he gets walked, if he gets hit, if he records a hit, you're cashing that ticket at the same exact price. This is just a mispriced number right here. Dylan Moore to reach base is essentially what we're betting in the game here today at minus 125. I love that one. That was the play of the day for me that stood out to me, Steve. Anything for you in the late night special, A's and Mariners?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about the starter for the A's, Joey Estes. This is a guy that was a 6th-round draft pick in 2019, 487. So this is nowhere close to like the number 1 overall pick that we talked about earlier for the Pirates. And it just shows why I like to dig into the minor league numbers because not everyone's good, not everyone's bad, but you do get some of the extremes. And this is a guy during his minor league career, 78 games, 74 starts, very mediocre 4.0 ERA. That would be a bad ERA even in the MLB, and you can add about 40% to it on average. And it has not translated very well this year. He was 6.0 ERA in 6 starts. They called him up because they've got nothing else. And in 2 starts so far for the A's, a 7.2 ERA and only 7 strikeouts in 10 innings. So not a good pitcher on a really bad team. And they're not calling him up because he's the future ace. So it's a complete opposite situation than Pittsburgh. So I like any guy you're going to take on Seattle that might have an over prop for hits, anything you're looking at, because Joey Estes is not the real deal.
Yeah, and chat helping me out and pointing out as well that depending on the book for the total bases, they settle them differently. So if you're betting on that green book, the walks are not included. The errors are not recorded.
That's crazy, isn't it, though, that it can vary? It's very frustrating.
Yeah. And that's why, and when you put it in your bet slip, if it's a good book, it's going to tell you that. So at DraftKings, it does not. I'm personally in California, so I have to bet on those offshores. But don't do that. That's bad to do. Never. Definitely
drive over the border to
do
Nevada.
not do that.
Know what you do.
Yeah.
Dan drives to Nevada.
If I was close,
everything on the up and up.
If I was close enough, I'd be hopping over there. So we appreciate you there in the chat. But yeah, I mean, even if it is the hits at the same price, I'm fine with that too. It's minus 125. I'm fine with either of those. I think Dylan Moore continues having a good game there. So Jack Falk asking me, which book are we looking at? I'm looking at that Schmet Schman Schmine. So sometimes you have to search around for that one.
What about Dan?
We appreciate you tuning in here.
Book. Dan
Fuel is strong. Dan Fuel is strong, but unfortunately, they settle it the same way as you get over there at Schmaff Schmings. So, Steve, all right, let's hit a couple more here before we get the folks out here. We appreciate you guys tuning in here. We appreciate the comments, and we appreciate always when you're letting us know when we potentially misspeak there a little bit for you. So we appreciate you having our back. Steve, we will want to bring up at least an NBA game with you because we had some questions earlier directed specifically towards you. But last one for me, we have to bring up the Dodgers because the chat's talking about it. Even at minus 150, playing the Padres, they love betting the Dodgers here. It's the parlay piece that everybody throws in. Is it a parlay buster tonight? The Dodgers with Paxton on the mound as he's going up against Waldron. What do you think?
Yeah, so I liked the Dodgers last night. It's the one game I missed in MLB. And if you had told me the Padres are going to have 3 total hits and only 2 runs, I would have liked the Dodgers even more. Now, as I often do and almost always do, I played it responsibly, and I used the Dodgers run line minus 1.5. So I lost a lot less juice than the minus 170. It was like minus 120. And as is often the case, when the Dodgers lose, they lose outright. When they win by margin. If you look at the previous 7 games, they've gone 6-1 against the run line, going 7-0 straight up, 6 of those previous 7 by 2 runs or more. So once again, it's Dodgers run line. And one of the reasons it works with teams like the Dodgers and the Braves is because they are a good offensive team. They can win by margin. My concern, though, is I like the Dodgers last night, and they managed only 1 run on 4 hits. That's a huge red flag, and that's what's keeping me off this game completely today, or tonight, rather, on Saturday. And the Dodgers offense now has 6 hits or less in 4 of their last 5 games. So even though they were winning some games, it was a little misleading. As I've talked about with the Reds and other teams, that started the season hot runs-wise, but the hits weren't there. Hits are the great equalizer, and it's really the consistency day to day, guys putting the ball in play. So the under is probably the way to look. Petco is a very pitcher-friendly park. San Diego only 3 hits last night. The Dodgers only 4. So if I was to play this one, I'm staying away from the side just because the Dodgers came up short last night. I like the under, and it's a surprisingly open 8.5, 9.5. 9.5 to the under. Don't quite understand that with 2 offenses that are in very questionable form right now.
That's Steve Merril. A little episode of First Pitch broke out here on WagerTalk, the last call. Before we shut things down here for the weekend, Steve, you've been doing your daily entire preview of the NBA playoffs. It is a great wealth of information, and the views, the comments, the likes, it reflects the hard work that Steve puts in running down the entire slate of NBA player props, sides, totals, all of it. Make sure you check it out here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Check out the links in the description on this video below to see some more of that. But Ken Dworsnik earlier was asking, and Ronald and I touched on this a little bit, Doncic returning to form a little bit. He's asking, or he says, great show. Thoughts on Doncic under points and rebounds and assists? Obviously, he's hurt. However, is there a better under prop to play on Doncic? He returned to form there in game 2, and he hit the 5 threes. We touched upon that as well, Steve. So I don't know if as Ronald said, as the series goes on, he thinks the injury and the banged up nature of Doncic is going to be a little bit more apparent. But I just don't know if I want to, as you say, catch a falling knife and hop in on any Doncic props, to be honest with you.
Well, the Doncic under has been very profitable. In fact, he's gone under his points in 6 of the last 7 playoff games, including game 2 the other night, in which he shot extremely well. He still stayed under. It was 31.5, and he only had 29 points, and he was still 5 for 8 from 3. He was 11 for 21 from the field. So the problem with Doncic is he's already priced to perfection, and he's still not healthy. And keep in mind, he was 1 for 8 from 3-point range in game 1. He was 17 for 75 in the playoffs, 22.7% from 3 until going 5 for 8, and he still stayed under his point total. So I'd be very careful with his points. As I say, though, in my video, I don't like to play the superstars under. That'd be Mitchell, Doncic. You look at guys like Brunson for New York. So it's either over or pass for me with these superstars, but I'm not going to play Doncic over for several reasons. He's overinflated and he's still injured. I do like his assist props, though. I mentioned it in the game 2, over 9.5. He only had 7, but he'd had 9 or more in the 6 previous playoff games, and I do think he's going to get the ball to Kyrie more. So if you're looking for a good over prop, Kyrie only had 9 points, and they still won the game. He was only 2 for 8 shooting. I look for him to have a bigger game, so maybe Kyrie props over. One guy I do like in that game, though, is on OKC to bounce back. I mentioned this in my video, And that is there's big three, SGA, Holmgren, and then Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams has gone under in the first two games with 20 and 18, barely staying under 20 and a half both times. But now he's been bumped down to 19 and a half at DraftKings. And this is a guy that's had 19 or more in five of his last six, 18 or more in six straight, 20 or more in four of the last five, and he's at 19 and a half now. And what I like about Jalen Williams is he's getting a lot of shot attempts. In that game two, he had 17 shot attempts. He had 15 or 16 in game one, and he still got to 20 and 18 points, shooting below average. So I think Jalen Williams has a nice bounce back tonight. It's hard to say it's a bounce back when you've had 18 or 20, but he's gone under back-to-back games. I like his over.
Yeah, the sneaky Kyrie play for me earlier, in case you were just tuning in, I'm going over his total steals. It's sitting at 1.5. And it's only minus 105 if you want to play that over. He's had 2 steals in each games thus far. Last series against the Clippers, he had 2 or more steals in all games but one. Going back to the regular season, you're looking at 2 steals, 2, 3. So just going back, this has been a prop that's been cashing with regularity. It's cashed 9 out of his last 10 games. So for me, it's Kyrie Irving steals over. If you want some more thoughts on the basketball card, you're going to have to check out Steve's video right here at WagerTalk TV. That's a tease for you, Steve. On the way out, Lil A is asking us, your Baltimore Orioles. We talked your Nationals, so we have to touch upon, is there worth a play in that game?
Well, Brandon and you and I talked about the Orioles yesterday, and Brandon had an interesting point that they strike out a lot. And then I, countered that it really is amazing because they lead the league in home runs, and they played 3 less games than a lot of the other teams, and they still had more home runs than any of them. So in a single game scenario, it's a lot like the NBA or college basketball where the 3-point shot is so important. Handicapping a team like the Orioles, it really comes down to the opposing pitcher. Is he going to give up a lot of fly balls and home run opportunities? We don't have a lot of numbers on Nelson. So it's a game I'm staying away from for that reason. But I think big picture, if you can get the Orioles against fly ball pitchers in general, they're going to be worth a look.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of numbers on Nelson. We don't have a lot of numbers on Means this year. So for me, it's a stay away. But we appreciate you asking in the comments. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit subscribe. And thank you, Ruzen. Let's get this paper indeed. Speaking of getting paper, partner with my man Steve Merril over at WagerTalk.com. 11 days for the price of $7, $9 a day gets you action for over 10 days. Damn good deal. And Steve, when they partner with you over there, what kind of stuff can they expect?
Yeah, we talked a lot of baseball today, but let's not forget I'm number 1 this season in Units 1 in the NBA, and I'm number 1 all time in the history of WagerTalk.com in Units 1 in the NBA. And not surprisingly, I'm having a fantastic playoffs. Went 2-1 last night. We had 3 best bets, 2 sides in the total last night. Went 2-1, including sweeping that Denver and the over in the late game. And I'm coming back with best bets in both NBA games for Saturday, the afternoon and nighttime games. You might want to get on board the rest of the playoffs. But if you want baseball as well, which I highly recommend, then consider that All Sports All Access. And this weekend is your last chance to buy 7, but get 11, 4 bonus days included for just $99. That works out to exactly $9 a day and night. $9 a day for both day and night. $9 a day for 11 straight days and nights of All Sports. That $99 11-day special expires this weekend, so get on board now. No promo code needed. And check out the free plays. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. And while you're here on WagerTalk TV, click the like button, the thumbs up, hit subscribe, and hit the bell for instant alerts so you know when my daily NBA playoff video goes. I analyze both games in depth for Saturday. Tons of free selection, sides, totals, props every day. So hit subscribe and the bell for instant alerts for that daily NBA playoff video, which is on the channel here right now.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Steve. Daily, nightly, ever so rightly. Partner up with our man, Steve Merril. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button and the bell, as Steve said, on the way out. Enjoyed filling in here for the great Joe Ranieri on Wager Talk. Last call. We'll be back locked and loaded on Monday with all the programming you know and love. But don't shy away from Wager Talk TV. Steve Merril is a beast. Gravy bets. That's an absolute fact. But make sure you don't shy away from Wager Talk TV because we got info you need to cash all weekend long, whether you were live or not here. So make sure you're subscribed. We appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time here, but you don't have to go far. You can check out the links in the video below or hit the video on your screen. Keep on getting that info you need to cash on all the sports you love. It's what we do here at Wager Talk TV. Best of luck, everyone. We'll see you next time.